Well, the group has got together now. I guess there's 12 riders here now with Dimitri Konyshev on the front and wondering who's going to make the first move. Just behind him was Marin. He was the highest placed rider overall, but still a long way behind Casagrande today.
Well, the first man to move is Sevilla, the Kelme rider. He was on the attack just a little earlier, and everyone is going to keep launching attacks like this, Phil, because they realize just how dangerous Dimitri Konyshev is.
Well, Sevilla was at the first over the top of the climb in that little group of three of Valico Lalasta. And the bunch, by the way, eventually went over the top 4 minutes 40 seconds back, but they are closing in.
Well, Sevilla's got the advantage right now, around about 3 or 4 seconds over the rest of the group, but you can see what's going on here. Everybody is looking at Dimitri Konyshev. They're waiting for him to make all the efforts before the sprint.
Well, Konyshev obviously the man to watch here, but now this looks like Enrico Cassani also looking over his shoulder and moving up. Well, not too far away now. Cassani has dived across now to the back wheel of Sevilla. There's a little bit of a gap here now, and the fact Cassani hasn't waited and he's gone. This could be an Italian victory.
Well, that was a good move. As soon as he got onto the back wheel of Sevilla, he went straight over the top there. Now he has an advantage of about 10 bike lengths over the Spanish rider. The Spanish rider in second place on the road, Sevilla, but behind it's Konyshev who has to make the effort if he's going to pull back this Polti rider.
So Enrico Cassani is moving clear now, a rider who's never won a bike race in his career, and it started in 1997, and he's in the last kilometre, and it could be reality now because they are still wasting time.
Well, they're all sitting up, they're all waiting for the effort to be made by Konyshev. Konyshev is the fastest sprinter in the group, Phil, and they're all queuing up right behind him. Cassani has hit them, and he's hit them hard. He just waited for the moment when Sevilla was starting to fade. He came up to the Spaniard's back wheel and went straight over the top of him.
Well, the Danish flag flying there, but there's no Danish cyclists in this breakaway. And it looks as though Enrico Cassani, the Polti rider, is going to win this stage. He's 28 years old, and he's never won a race before. The long, thin line of riders here now as they race towards the line. He is still clear, and I don't think they are going to catch him in the narrow streets either.
Well, his teammates on the back there, Eddie Mazzolini, he's over the cobblestones now. He can see the signs ticking by the meters as he comes into the final straight now. 250 meters to go. He's timed it to perfection.
Well, you know, I guess they didn't realize just how strong this man. They didn't mark him at all because they didn't expect him to take this one out. He wasn't a marked man, and now he suddenly realized that he is going to run out the winner of the stage and take it well. And the sprint behind, it's Bramati, I think, who got in there just ahead of Dimitri Konyshev. Little salute too from Mazzolini.
They had Giano at the back there, but this man timed it to perfection. The first win of his career, Phil, and when you do get one, you might as well make it a big one.
Well, absolutely. A stage in the Giro d'Italia. The peloton are in and over 4 minutes and 47 seconds to the middle of the bunch there. This is how he won it. Just made sure nobody was going to take him on. And as they come up for second place there, David Bramati of Mapei just squeezing in ahead of Dimitri Konyshev. Well, like everything else in the Giro d'Italia, there's a large bottle of champagne here. Half of it's gone already. He's never done this before as a pro bike rider.
But when you get a win, it really is a good one. That was a very smart move by him, Phil. And fortunately for Francesco Casagrande, no problems at all in keeping hold of the pink jersey of leadership.
No, the break working out well for him today. They were timed at 1 second behind Cassani, but for Casagrande, nobody in that breakaway, which was away for much of the stage, who affected him. But maybe the mountains now, as we head up towards the Dolomites in the Giro d'Italia, perhaps Casagrande will have to come out once again and show us just how good he really is in the mountains. And it's the 5th day in the leader's pink jersey, and what a day this one is, because we climb at 3 first category passes, beginning with the Falzarego onto the giant Marmalada and finishing on the Selva Pass. It's on 186 kilometers a day as we join the race here. 2 leaders, Gonzalez and Brogina, heading up as we go over the top of the Falzarego Pass. 110 kilometers covered.
Well, the interesting thing is that, in fact, this is the remainder of a 7-man group, and once again on the attack, Dimitri Konyshev. This man, Phil, is looking for points every day. It doesn't matter whether it's a mountain stage or a sprint stage, and he goes over the top of that pass, the first major pass of the day, in 3rd spot.
But the pink jersey group is timing at around 1.5 minutes in a small bunch, and the main field 3 minutes 40 seconds, because everybody worried after this very tricky descent here we run down to the start of the climb of the Marmalada.
Well, the Marmalada going up to over 2,000 meters in altitude. That's more than 6,000 feet, and it is an unbelievable climb. But I think what is more difficult is the fact that you've got the Marmalada immediately followed by the Paso di Sella. You can see for today that the pink jersey's got all of his men around him, the guard who will look after him on all of these mountain passes, and the man he will count on the most, Phil, I have to say, is Roberto Conti.
And it will come as no surprise if I tell you that Mario Cipollini failed to start this morning. Took one look out of his window, I suspect, and saw the mountains and decided to return home.
I think it was that bad allergy coming back to him. He's got a serious allergy problem when it comes to looking up to the big mountain passes. But it's as if this group now is starting to come back together again on the descent, you know, and I do feel that the man who has made the junction is Dimitri Konyshev, and that's amazing, Phil, on a stage like this. Konyshev is like the young man that he was about 10 years ago.
Yes, he's never ridden such a good race for a long time, but he's certainly looking good now and consolidating every day his lead in that points competition. But now it's a big battle for the overall, for who will wear the pink jersey tonight, and this is a good chance now to see if any of the riders are able to take on the challenge laid down by Francesco Casagrande.
Well, this is a chase group out on the road trying to make a way across to that leading group, which at one time had more than 3 minutes on the main field, but I do feel certain, Phil, that this will start to come down before the finish. This is the man who has really been the man of the match over the first 10 days of the Giro d'Italia, Dimitri Konyshev, the sprinter, the man of the flat stages, and yet every time there's been a mountain so far, he's been out on the attack.
Well, looking back here now, the pink jersey, 2 minutes plus still back to Casagrande. He doesn't look too concerned with the way things are going. Back up to the leaders now, Jaime Gomez. Kepi Gonzalez, as we know him as, is the former winner of the King of the Mountains on 2 occasions. And a little bit further down the road now, we're looking here at Noncentini, Paul, from the Mapei team.
Well, he was earlier on in that leading group of 7 riders, so he has now been pulled back into the fold, the group of the pink jersey, and the first man to catch him was his teammate Paolo Lanfranchi. Lanfranchi is riding a very good Giro d'Italia right now, and he is in this group with Noe, you can just see on the right-hand side there, and Pavel Tonkov. Roberto Conti is the man on the front setting the tempo, and he is really looking after his man in the pink jersey, Francesco Casagrande.
Well, we're just inside 50 kilometers to go now, and in fact Casagrande looking to make his move, I think, to start closing that gap down. He's allowed it to run enough times. He must be a little bit worried by Kepi Gonzalez. Everybody else I think he'll feel pretty content with, because the majority of the other challengers are not too far away from his side. Back up to the leaders here now. This is Brogina.
And in that group as well, Ricardo Ochoa. He's the Calme rider, but the face of Francesco Casagrande, Phil, right now doesn't give very much away at all. He looks very comfortable. He proved over the San Pellegrino in Alpi that he is in very good condition over the big mountain passes. In fact, though, he is a little bit isolated. He only has one teammate in this group in the shape of Roberto Conti, and the 3 leaders now have an advantage of around about 1 minute over the main field.
And this is the middle of the pack here, and they're looking a little bit unhealthy while at the front now, followed by Tonkov. Casagrande is launching the attack. We're approaching now the slower slopes here on the climb of the Marmalada. It starts very steadily, but Casagrande has not waited long here now to try and put matters to rights.
Dario Frigo is the Fassa Bortolo rider there, but you can see how attentive Pavel Tonkov was. A quick glimpse of Axel Merckx going straight back through the main field there. He was caught after an early attack on the first slopes of this climb, but riding their way back up there is Hernan Buenahora. Now they've responded to that attack by Francesco Casagrande, and it seems as if the whole group is now going to stay together.
Well, look at this now, Casagrande just preparing to do what we saw him do on the San Pellegrino, and that's try and ride everybody off his wheel. Ivan Gotti always smarting a little bit when people didn't think his win last year was justified because of the late disqualification of Marco Pantani, but he has won the Tour before. He's had 2 Giro wins, trying to make an impression here now, but he still has a lot of work to do. As the group, Garzelli is also here now. Pavel Tonkov just on the back of this group, I think.
Well, you can see now that, in fact, Casagrande is missing out on the fact that he doesn't have too many teammates. In fact, nobody has very many teammates left at all, because this acceleration has actually blown the group to smithereens as Casagrande sets the tempo on the front all on his own. There is Gotti on his left-hand side. On the far side is Garzelli. Buenahora has moved up here, and a nice recovery there by the man in white from Fassa Bortolo. That is Dario Frigo, and he's climbing himself high up in the overall rankings here, Phil.
Oh, Frigo's having a pretty good tour right now, but again, Casagrande is using the same tactic of setting the pace. So often climbers like to set the pace and see if they can ride the riders off the wheel. They don't like to be dictated to because they can't rise to the speed of others. Garzelli there, though, looking very, very good and matching him wheel turn for wheel turn at the moment. Gotti, to me, Paul, doesn't look that good. He looks as though he's struggling here.
He looks as if he's pretty much on the rivet, but at least he's in the front group at the moment, because I think once again Pavel Tonkov has been put into difficulty because of that acceleration. Tonkov here doesn't really show any emotion at all. He's sitting down, ticking out a fairly sensible tempo, but he is not able to stay in contact with the pink jersey at the moment. Now this is a major surprise, because a lot of people felt that this guy was a big chance for him to come back and win this bike race again. He's got Paolo Lanfranchi in there with him, just trying to pace him a little bit more, hoping that he's going to recover.
It doesn't look to me as though he's going to recover right now, because he is starting to slip away here. The Mapei team are very unhappy with his riding just now. They don't feel as though he's putting his back into the race. Well, I'm not sure he can do, because if that's Moto 3, that's the third camera bike on the road. He is now losing serious ground on these three. Little bit of a surprise to see Garzelli riding so well. Another man who's won the Tour of Switzerland, like the man who's leading the pace here. And Gotti, well, I reckon he's there purely because he's a proud man and carries number one.
Well, he certainly has. He wants to try and win this bike race again. He felt very confident before the start of the Giro, and you know, I don't think his time trial was all that good. He may well improve as we get closer to the end of the Giro d'Italia, because one thing you must not forget about the Giro, it is a very different race to the Tour de France. All of the big climbs, Phil, come in the last 3 or 4 days, and this race can get completely turned upside down. But Francesco Casagrande at the moment is proving to be the strongest bike rider in the race, and he's putting serious time between himself and his closest challengers.
And a bit of a Mapei tempo ride now as they try to rescue Pavel Tonkov and do something with him here. But he's a long way back, and up comes the pink jersey now, beginning to start to pick off the riders from the original breakaway. This is the way Francesco Casagrande had decided he wanted to do it. He gave them quite a lead at the bottom, but now he is starting to ride past them one by one. This is Santiago Blanco. He attacked earlier on and is now about to be picked up by the Maglia Rosa of the Giro d'Italia, and he looks to be riding with such ease.
He's just setting a nice steady pace there, and he's not even attacked, Phil. He's just riding a tempo, his own tempo, just to keep the race going together. On his wheel, though, in fact, the man who is in second position there is the man who is the leader of the Mercatone Uno squad, Stefano Garzelli. Marco Pantani has been left an awful long way behind already. He's at the moment said to be 2 minutes behind this leading group. But Phil, look at this. Pavel Tonkov looks as if he's absolutely stopped.
Well, he's on the Marmalada, and I think he really has hit the wall just now. He started to crack very early on. This rider's not put a wheel mark wrong just now. Remember that the top of the classification is not big gaps, but it might be by the end of this stage. Once over the Marmalada, we then will move on to the Selva Pass and then head down for the finish in Selva Gardena. And I think that today Francesco Casagrande has tried to put the record book straight.
Well, he certainly is trying to blow this race apart. Gotti is now starting to look in difficulty. He's just hoping to stay in contact with this train. At the moment, we still have a group of riders off up the road, but this is the battle for the overall standings at the Giro d'Italia. The pink jersey on the shoulders of Francesco Casagrande, and further down, the man who thought to challenge him here, Pavel Tonkov, is in all kinds of difficulty. He can't stay with his own teammates, Paolo Lanfranchi and Andrea Noe.
And look at this now, and that spectator got pulled out the way, but now Casagrande is keeping the pressure on. Garzelli is struggling. I think Gotti has gone. Gotti has lost the wheel there, and Garzelli has done well to come back. This is Dario Frigo again here with Santiago Blanco.
Well, Dario Frigo was with that group for a while. He's riding his own tempo. He's not actually losing too much time. He's riding a very sensible pace, but he's not trying to follow the accelerations at the front coming from this man. Francesco Casagrande is tapping out the tempo on this climb at the moment, but in fact Ivan Gotti, Phil, seems to have recovered a little bit because he's pulled himself back up to this group, and we're now looking at the three top men in the Giro d'Italia, the three big climbers. Further down, Santiago Blanco has done his job for the day, and I think he will disappear from the action. But Dario Frigo is riding on. He's keeping himself in contact with the bike race as we get towards the summit of this very difficult climb of the Marmalada. But let's not forget, there's another tough climb to go, the Paso di Sella.
Well, Casagrande now heading up towards the top of the Marmalada. He set a tremendous pace here, and looks as though Garzelli is the only man able to hang on to him here as he continues the lone trail up the mountain. The crowd, as you can see, wearing the racing capes and keeping warm because it is very, very cold up here. Not far off to the left and right of the riders, we can see the snow, but I'm quite sure that Casagrande is feeling pretty warm deep down. This is Dario Frigo, becoming something of a special ride for him today, as he also tries to keep in touch with the three leaders.
Well, you could see there that Gotti was really trying to stay in contact. He was just going off the back wheel of Stefano Garzelli in the yellow jersey. Dario Frigo is doing a very sensible ride here, Phil. He's not panicking at all. In fact, he's just making sure that he doesn't lose too much time on these slopes. And I've got the feeling he's actually starting to pull himself back into this bike race. Now, this is going to give him a very high place in the overall saying. Another attack comes from Casagrande.
Well, we're heading up to the summit, and this is for the first man over the climb here. Casagrande is now going clear. He has set the tempo all the way through the field as Casagrande goes over the top. Garzelli won't give him an inch at all, goes over second. There's a bit of a time gap, though, back to Ivan Gotti, who did well to even get within touch of them. This is Frigo, so Gotti is just under that banner there, and Dario Frigo is going to go over somewhere around 15-20 seconds behind, but a lot of fight in those legs. He might get on the way down.
Well, if he takes some risks with only 20 seconds, he should be able to do that. But what a great ride by this man. Not a name we would have expected to talk about over the big mountain passes. Ivan Gotti as well, you know, he's really recovered, Phil. He's managed to keep in contact with this group of riders, and now he will hope to recuperate on the descent. But after that, once they get to the bottom here, they've got a very difficult climb, the Paso di Sella, which actually goes up a little higher than the Paso di Marmalada to 2,213 meters.
Well, there's the result over the top, and they're continuing to race on here. Now you can see a little bit of the snow lying around the Dolomites. They're a beautiful stretch of mountains, but they don't have much vegetation on top because they're covered in snow for probably 7 months of the year. Now, this is still Dario Frigo trying to get back on terms with the three leaders. They're certainly not waiting for anybody, are they? And there's the 30-second group back to the rest of the race, which has been blown apart, quite frankly, on the climb of the Marmalada. And I think Tonkov may be in that group at 30 seconds.
Well, Tonkov is going to have to take some serious risks on the descent of this climb if he wants to stay in contact and possibly win the Giro d'Italia for a second time. The man doing the great ride there, Phil, we just caught a glimpse of him, was Dario Frigo, and there is the Tonkov group a little further down the road.
So Tonkov may get back onto terms here with a little bit of luck, but the seconds that were in the overall classification are going to open up tonight, and it's still going to be the same man in the leaders' pink jersey, Francesco Casagrande. In fact, Ivan Gotti will have a little acceleration up the overall classification himself, and he's got a bit of time to make up too on Casagrande, and don't think Casagrande doesn't know it.
Well, in fact, we're getting information that Marco Pantani has completely disappeared away from the bike race, and the last time check we had, he was more than 8 minutes behind. So I think for Marco Pantani, Phil, he's just going to have to try and ride through this Giro d'Italia and look a lot further forward to the Tour de France. And if he can ride through the Giro d'Italia, he may well get the form to make him competitive later in the year.
It's all a question of whether his head's in gear with his legs, I think, Paul, but let's hope he does come back because he's such a magical climber on his day. Anyway, a great chase by this newcomer, or something of a newcomer, in Dario Frigo. He's now got himself up to Gotti, Casagrande and Garzelli. A very good fast descent. He obviously smelt the riders and he's come and caught up with them, and he's ridden extremely well here. And this is back to the next group on the road now, which seems to be led by Paolo Savardelli. There's Buena Hora is in this group. It's quite a large group here. So too is Simoni. And I think, well, 35 seconds is not a lot. They could all get across here before the next climb.
I think they will get across before the next climb, because in that group, Paolo Savardelli will lead on the descent, and he is an unbelievable downhill racer. His nickname is Il Falco, the Falcon, because of the way he plummets off these mountain passes into the valley below. We're almost at the bottom of the climb there, and in fact the other Mapei rider in this group with Pavel Tonkov is Chan McRae, so he's having to work for the team today.
Yes, McRae's having to be the brilliant team man to try and get Tonkov back in. The Mapei team is totally behind Tonkov, but whenever he tries to get in with the sharp end of the action, he does not seem to be able to do it. That's 25 kilometers to go there, and we're going to have a coming together.
Well, a good work being done there by Chan McRae. McRae now pulling off, and it's Tonkov himself taking over the chase and he's about to make the contact with that leading group of 4 riders. That is the group of the pink jersey of Francesco Casagrande. And you know, Pavel Tonkov may well have just had difficulty on that one climb and may be able to recover, because you know the Marmalada is a very difficult climb. It's a very steep climb, and I have a feeling that we might find him being a little bit more competitive on the next climb of the day.
Well, here's Casagrande, and they're all tagging on. He's taking one look over his shoulder, and a little bit of a surprise there for Garzelli. He wasn't expecting that, I don't think. Dario Frigo, who has had a couple of wins this year in the Tour de Campagna and the Giro del Trentino, Tour Trentino. And another attack going, and this time now it is the leader of the Kelme squad who has launched it, Jose Luis Rubira. He's waited while they've all regrouped, and now he's hit them again on the climb towards, well, not quite towards the finish, because once over the top of this one, which is some 15 kilometers uphill, they then plunge down to the finish in Selva Gardena.
Look at that. You know, they all looked across at him, but everybody must be having quite a hard time at the moment, because nobody got out of the saddle at all. They saw the attack happen and nobody wanted to respond, but somebody has responded, and this looks as if it may well be Santiago Blanco again who is coming across there. The Spaniards, Phil, are on the attack every time there's a mountain pass, and nobody now in this group wants to chase, but they're going to have to pick up the chase a little bit later on, you know, because Rubiera is fairly high in the overall rankings and could be a danger.
Well, I'm surprised that Blanco here can find the strength to have a go. He's just been brought back. I thought he'd blown on the Marmalada. Obviously recovered, caught him with that third group, and has come back up to the leaders and recovered well enough to go now with the move. And I would think that Rubiera will be pretty happy he's got a second pair of wheels to help him out here.
Well, in that group, Vladimiro Belli is the other Fassa Bortolo rider, and trying to get across now. Andrea Noe has launched the attack off the front. Now, this will take the pressure off Pavel Tonkov, because that means then that the Mapei team won't have to chase after those leading 2 riders. But you can see Noe is not getting that much of an advantage over the rest of the group there, and I'd like to get down there right now and just see exactly who's going to take up the pacemaking.
And that's what they're thinking, I think, Paul, at the moment, because the pink jersey, strangely enough, is now taking a quieter step here. He's waiting for the others to make the move. And well, there we are. We've got a move being made, and he's immediately followed. And that's Ivan Gotti. I'm not surprised Casagrande has responded to him, because Gotti, who was struggling on the climb of the Marmalada, he was dropped by 15 seconds, also trying to launch an attack.
Well, moving right up onto his wheel there was Pavel Tonkov. So Pavel Tonkov may well have recuperated somewhat, Phil, because the Marmalada was a climb that was just a little bit too steep for him. In this group as well is Hernan Buenahora and Stefano Garzelli on the left-hand side there. Moving forward now is Gilberto Simoni. 3rd overall in the Giro d'Italia last year. Now he wants to get out on the attack and start to stir things up.
Well, there's the face of Simoni, 3rd last year in this race. He would have been 4th, but for the late disqualification of Marco Pantani. He's also trying to gain a little bit of time here. Well, Casagrande can't let these riders go too far ahead. Certainly not Simoni. And another attack again. This time it comes from our old friend Hernan Buenahora, as he now moves clear. It seems odd to see him in the colours of Stella Italia. We're so used to seeing him in the green and white of Kelme. But that is a good little climber there, and the breakaway immediately jumping on him.
Well, this is Gilberto Simoni, a very tough move by him. This man is trying to ride himself up into the high rankings of the overall standings. There are 2 riders up the road at the moment, Jose Luis Rubiera, and the man who got across him was Santiago Blanco. Now it seems to me, Phil, as if the pink jersey here of Francesco Casagrande is in a little bit of difficulty, because he doesn't have any teammates in this group at all. He doesn't have anybody who can help to set the pacemaking on the front. Now Garzelli thinks he can go.
Well, Garzelli, another rider who is beginning to look good now. And Marco Pantani has said he would like to see Garzelli win this race. Well, he's not a rider we would have put down as a #1 contender, but look at the way he goes here. He's gone again, and clearly Casagrande fears him, because he's come straight up to him.
Well, Casagrande's got to respond to these attacks now. He shouldn't have let that man Gilberto Simoni get off the front, though, because Simoni, I think, is a serious challenger. 3rd overall last year, and he's obviously looking to go a little bit better this year.
Well, we're looking here now at Santiago Blanco. You see the little didgeridoo underneath the bottom bracket there? That's a transponder which times the riders on the climbs this year, which is how they're judging the King of the Mountains. The trouble is they haven't made the little machinery compulsory to be worn by all of the riders.
Well, Ivan Gotti again trying to go off the front here. Immediately, though, you can see the pink jersey of Francesco Casagrande responding to that attack, and it all comes back together again. The head of the race, the leading two riders, have a 15-second advantage over Gilberto Simoni and the main group of the Maglia Rosa at 30 seconds at the moment. Santiago Blanco seems to be in a bit of difficulty here, Phil, staying with his partner in the breakaway, Jose Luis Rubiera. Now, these two guys are very good climbers indeed, and the man starting to make the difference in the gap getting across to them is this man here, Gilberto Simoni. Wears number 91. He's the leader of the Lampre squad, and Benahora thinks, well, this is the time for me to go as well.
And he's got a nice little gap at the minute, but you know, we're seeing here the select group of the Giro d'Italia, because everybody else is out of the hunt now in this race. The last time check on the main body of the field was 18 minutes back. So we're looking here now at the real creme de la creme, and this is Gilberto Simoni, who has, as Paul said, finished third last year, and is now trying to gain a few seconds, because a few seconds here and a few seconds there, and Casagrande will lose that leader's pink jersey.
Well, Ivan Gotti, I don't know what he had for breakfast, but he's out on the attack again now, trying to get away from Francesco Casagrande. He's attacked Casagrande about 4 times so far, but every time the man who leads the bike race has managed to respond. He's come out and he's pulled himself back up to the man who wears number 1 as last year's winner. And another attack coming to the pink jersey. This time it's Stefano Garzelli. Francesco Casagrande, Phil, is being put under pressure today on the final big climb of the day, the Paso di Sella.
Still 6 kilometers to climb from that 20-kilometer banner, and then the plunge downhill to the finish. And it looks as though Buenahora is about to be brought back to the fold, but not without a fight. He's going to keep the tempo on there. 1 or 2 riders suffering at the back of this group, which is getting smaller by the minute, and all because of the tempo being set by Garzelli and Casagrande, and these incessant attacks coming from Ivan Gotti.
Well, that gives you an idea of what the Paso di Sella is like. We're halfway up it at the moment, and the man making the difference here is Gilberto Simoni. This looks very much like Hernan Buenahora. He's been trying to blow this race to pieces at the moment. He's an exceptionally good climber, a man we've seen on many occasions at the Tour de France, and here riding for a new team which is made up basically of Colombian riders with a few Italians as well, the Selle Italia Nectar team. There are 5 Colombian riders in this team and 3 Italians.
And they're all pretty good climbers. Now look at that. De Luca was near the front of this group. He's not quite as far back as everybody else, but I think today he's lost his part in the Giro as well. Nearly 4 minutes back for poor Danilo now. He's still so young, and this race getting a bit too far for him. And back up towards the top, as this is Gilberto Simoni, and now back to the very front. I thought for a moment that perhaps Santiago Blanco had been dropped, but no, the 2 riders are together.
Santiago Blanco is putting the pressure on here right now, and it looks as if Rubiera is the man in difficulty. Getting out of the saddle now on the steeper part of the climb, just trying to keep those gears ticking over as Rubiera gets out of the saddle too, to bring himself back up to the tail of his compatriot. So the Spanish, Phil, really are the aggressive teams when it comes to these mountain stages, and the man who at the moment is making the best move up the overall standings is Gilberto Simoni there. But this group seems to be swelling. In fact, I thought I caught a glimpse there of Sergei Honchar, who rode a very good time trial a couple of days ago, and he now is in this leading group, which is starting to swell. But Simoni has made the contact.
Well, that is a very good ride by Honchar. If he's got into that, we don't really consider him as a top climber, although he's on his day, he's had some good results. Now it looks as though there's 3 at the front now, as Simoni has got across to the 2 leaders with a fine demonstration of climbing, and he's going to hit them straight away and see if they've got any legs left to follow him. Well, we might have. Rubiera is going to go after him. They make climbing look so easy, these 3, and Santiago Blanco surely can't go again, because he has been struggling on the previous climb, yet on this climb it clearly suits him better.
Well, it's all a question of the gradient, you know, because certain riders can climb on certain slopes, and I think today we've found that he is actually quite at home on the Dolomites here. You know, Francesco Casagrande, Phil, is going to have to respond. He has done. He's going clear now with Stefano Garzelli, but in fact Gilberto Simoni started the day in 11th place in the overall standings, 1 minute 44 back. So Francesco Casagrande is going to have to respond to an attack like that.
Yes, he is, and I think the Lampre team car giving Simoni the advice there of what is going on, but I wonder if they realise that Casagrande has gone and taken with him Garzelli, who seems to be very strong on this climb, but they've got rid of Gotti now. A chance to gain time over last year's winner.
In fact, I think here Garzelli is a lot stronger than Francesco Casagrande. He's matched the attack there of his compatriot, the rider on the Mercatone Uno squad. And in fact, the acceleration at the front here from Gilberto Simoni has got rid of Santiago Blanco. Two riders leading the bike race, and finally the Devil makes his appearance. This man is a German, and he's a major feature nowadays, isn't he, Phil, at all the major tours that we go to?
You can actually buy little Devils off him now because he's gone into the production of his own toys, I think. But while the two leaders are clear now, Buenahera is about to be brought back to the fold by just two riders. The pink jersey of the race leader and the yellow jersey of the Mercatone Uno's Garzelli. And it looks as though these boys are in a spot of bother now because Tonkov is there, and Gotti, Savadelli and Frigo are all hanging back.
Well, they're all having a hard time staying in contact. The man on the front of that group was Leonardo Pipoli, a small climber from the Banesto squad. This now is the counter-attack coming across here. They've joined Buenahora. Stefano Garzelli looks pretty good here, Phil, on the slopes of this climb. But the face of Francesco Casagrande does not give anything away at all. He's quite happy to sit on the wheel of the man who wears 131, who he hopes is going to pull him back up to the three leaders.
Well, there's been fine pacemaking here, but I wonder if Garzelli is overdoing it here, because Casagrande is a wise old owl. He knows what he's doing. They both won the Tour of Switzerland, by the way. That's their biggest previous victories in the stage race. Up with the two leaders now, and Simoni is doing a lot of work up here, and Rubiera getting a little bit gangly on the machine there, as if he's under pressure.
Well, this is Il Falco, the Falcon, Paolo Savadelli. He's moving off the front of the group now. He is the kind of rider who, if he can go over the summit, Phil, not too far behind them. This is the attack that we just missed a few moments ago. He's the man who many felt was a great challenger for the overall victory. He's already lost quite a lot of time so far, but he could ride himself back into the standings with a great descent off the summit of this climb.
Well, Simoni here is climbing himself up to a high place in the overall classification if he keeps it. There's the crowd on the top of the mountain, and then we're just about 14 kilometers downhill to the finishing line. A massive crowd, because again on a mountain here in the Dolomites, it is very, very cold indeed. Here they come, 15 kilometers to go, so that's probably also the last kilometer of the climb as they go through the two leaders now. Still Simoni doing most of the work. Rubiera, since he made the attack, has been caught by Simoni and not riding quite so well now.
Well, you know, Stefano Garzelli is not very far behind Francesco Casagrande in the overall standings. He's sixth at the start of the day this morning, just 22 seconds behind the pink jersey. So Francesco Casagrande really does have to stay in contact with the man who wears 131 there in the yellow jersey at the front of that group of three, because if they are separated by 20 odd seconds at the finish, then we could see another change in the overall standings.
So Paolo Savadelli, and he's now trying to do something, but the crowd up here are cheering one of their own over the top, and it looks as though the gap is there now. Rubiera looked as though he was suffering, and Simoni's getting stronger.
Well, that was a great attack there by Simoni. This man is certainly putting the whole of this race under pressure. This is the second group on the road. 131 is Garzelli. He's got the pink jersey of Francesco Casagrande with him, and the third man there for the ride is Hernan Buenahora. But this is a great move. This man, Phil, could be riding himself into the pink jersey today. He said that that's what his ambitions were after finishing third last year, and you can see he's getting much closer to the summit, and he will then have to plunge down towards the finishing line in Selva Gardena.
Well, the Lampre boys are having a pretty good season as we go a little bit further down now, and this is the group which has been whipped a little bit by the strongmen once again, containing all of the other big names in this year's Giro. This is Andrea Noe at the front of that group. Back to the leader.
Well, this is a great move by him, a very aggressive move, a brave move, considering we've already been over two very big mountain passes. The first one was 2,015 meters, then the Marmalada at 2,057 meters. The summit of this one, Phil, the Paso di Sella, is 2,213 meters, and then it is all downhill to the finish.
14 kilometers of it, as Simoni now is going to be first over the top of the climb, and Rubiera should get second and Blanco third, because they are still clear, although Blanco is only just clear as he comes up to the summit. He might get third by the seat of his racing shorts, because here comes Garzelli, and Buenahora is hanging on to the back wheel of the leader's pink jersey.
Well, that's a pretty good recovery. There's the time difference. 30 seconds is the difference between the leading man on the road And what a recovery by this man as well, Paolo Salvadelli, Phil. Once we get the time check on him, we'll know whether he has got a chance of pulling himself back into the bike race. He is an unbelievable descender when it comes to riding off these mountains. That is where he earned his nickname. Now, on the front of this group now, it's Francesco Casagrande who comes forward now to keep the pressure on. He wants to try and pull Gilberto Simoni back into the fold.
He's Il Falco chasing them down, but you know, Casagrande is one of the best descenders, and he seems to relish going downhill almost as much as going up it. But Il Falco here now is trying to race himself back into the picture of this year's Giro d'Italia. That's the result we saw over the top. Simoni, Rubiera, Garzelli. In fact, Garzelli getting the third place, Paul, so they must have caught Blanco right on the line.
It must have just caught him on the line there. A very difficult time to get caught, but at least he will be able to recover and stay in with this group on the descent. Gilberto Simoni now, Phil, has to take some serious risks on this descent off this mountain, and somewhere caught in the middle is Jose Luis Rubiera. He just dropped him before the summit of the climb, and in fact you can see Francesco Casagrande is leaving the rest of the group behind.
He really is a marvellous descender, this man, and he's just continuing to race downhill here. He is desperate to reach the two front runners. Under 5 kilometers to go now for these two. Rubiera has found his second wind, and Simoni is working with him. This is a superb escape now, but Casagrande is coming down like a train.
Well, he's coming down pretty rapidly. In fact, he's not far behind these riders, and he's around about 35 seconds, 51 seconds as it is back to this group, and that is remarkable. Here now is Il Falco. Il Falco, Phil, is about to make the junction with the group of the pink jersey, Francesco Casagrande.
Well, this is fine piece of racing by all of these riders, trying to pull back the leaderboard of the Giro d'Italia on this descent down into the finish in Selva Gardenia. But he's having to do something special here. He is closing in, and he must be racing here, Paul, at between 80 and 85 kilometers an hour.
This man is an unbelievable descender. I would have to say that he is the top descender in the world of professional cycling at the moment. He has taken all kinds of risks to pull himself back up to this group. This is the group of the pink jersey, Francesco Casagrande. Third from the front there is the yellow jersey of Stefano Garzelli, the man who really blew this race apart. Santiago Blanco is in there as well, and now Gilberto Simoni is struggling up that climb there, a very difficult climb just within almost sight of the finish.
Well, as these riders come together here, the last time check we had was 35 seconds to the two leaders. This is one of them, Rubiera, sitting on the back wheel of Simoni, and they're coming in very, very fast here. Garzelli is racing really hard. They would like to see Simoni before the finishing line. This is going to be a real fight between the man in yellow and the man in pink. And Salvadelli, I don't know whether he's had time to recover from that descent.
Well, Simoni now putting the pressure on. He's trying to ride Rubiera off his wheel on this very difficult climb that the organisation threw in just before the finishing line. Hernan Buenahora at the back of the group is in difficulty too. But what a great ride, Phil, by Garzelli on the front. He's the man who really, I think, today has put some pressure onto the pink jersey. Francesco Casagrande has responded to all of the attacks that have been thrown at him, and now he's starting to look a lot more relieved.
I agree. I think Garzelli has come up here as a major challenger right now, because he's not ridden it from the back, has he? He's either been alongside the pink jersey or setting the pace ever since they've come away from the Marmalada. And Salvadelli's done well to force himself back into the position. That little climb then is over, and we're racing down now towards the finish, although the contour map shows a slight little kick up to the finishing line. We'll find out if it's there when we get there, because we just saw Salvadelli go then as our camera cut away, but he's gone. There we are. Paolo Salvadelli has launched an attack. Now, he's lost an awful lot of time so far in this race, but Casagrande is having none of it and is chasing him down.
Hernan Buenahora at the back here, just happy to stay in contact with this group. We've seen him on the attack in the early part of the stage, and now we're coming up to the 1,000 meters to go. 1 kilometer, the Flamme Rouge, and these riders now are going to fight out the victory. The group behind are closing in fast, Phil, but they're not going to close in fast enough, because the victory on today's big mountain stage will go to one of these two riders. And certainly I would have to say I think it's going to go to Gilberto Simoni, because, you know, the Spanish riders are not normally renowned for their sprinting.
Well, that is true, but Simoni has done a lot of work on the climb here, because his ambition is to open time on Casagrande, and that might compromise him, because he has got to race all the way to the line. He's got no time for cat and mouse tactics for the sprint. He needs time on Casagrande, and I suspect that Rubiera knows that.
Well, he was looking strong there. This is the group now behind. It's 5 riders in this group. The man on the front is Salvadelli. He's trying to pull himself back into a stage victory, but I think he's left it just a little bit too late for today. Rubiera now, the Kelme rider, he's quite happy to come forward and help Simoni to try and keep their advantage over the rest of the group, but they are getting much closer to the finish.
Well, I made the gap there, Paul, 32 seconds under that banner, and so that is enough for these two to play for time if they want to, but really Simoni should be thinking of just keeping on the pressure. He needs to get time over Casagrande. He was third in this race last year, but he must take time when he can. There are not going to be many opportunities to catch Casagrande out, as we've seen in the mountains today. Rubiera then looking over the shoulder at Gilberto Simoni as they swing in now towards the finishing line. Look at the time today, 5¼ hours they've been mountain climbing today. As we go back here to the chase group, a little bit of slowing down here as well.
Salvadelli taking up the back position there. They're going to start playing around for third place on the road. The first man starting to lead this out is Gilberto Simoni, and right on his wheel is Rubiera. Simoni, Phil, opens up the sprint.
Well, Simoni then is going to go first into this left-hand bend. He nearly kicked it too wide there now, and he's had to falter. And in fact, the taller man, who doesn't look the sprinter, Rubiera, just has a little bit of a dance on the bike, and he's over. And so he gets the win for Kelme, as the others are now into the home straight here, and Garzelli, who has had a marvellous day out. Casagrande will not give him an inch. He's chasing him down. The two strong men of the mountains are still going to come in the same time. And just on half a minute since the winner crossed the line. It might actually dock Casagrande a second. As the rest of the riders come over the line, Buenahor just getting the better of Salvadelli and Santiago Blanco. And the rest are coming in now, and watch the time gaps here, because Pavel Tonkov is third man in line there. Loses another minute and a half. Well, a minute to the man that matters, Casagrande. And it does look, Paul, as though Tonkov is not firing on all four cylinders. Congratulations then to Kelme. They've got another stage win, and the champion this time is Rubiera, who gets his first stage win. He has won a stage in the Giro before, by the way. That was back in 1997. So he's now got 2 victories in the Giro, and it matches his 6th place overall in the Tour of Spain last year.
Well, that was a greatly timed sprint by him, you know, Phil. He accelerated, but the man who made the great descent off the mountain was Paolo Salvadelli. He had to be happy with 6th place on the finish line. As you can see with the confirmation here, the gaps are already starting to appear. 31 seconds Stefano Garzelli was behind in 3rd place, but the Kelme riders have got what they've been looking for, Phil, a stage victory for Jose Luis Rubiera.
Look at the changes overall now. Garzelli only 18 seconds behind Casagrande, 61 seconds to Belli, who is having a magnificent tour, and despite his bad riding, Pavel Tonkov is still there in 4th place overall. So as we carry on with this coverage of the Giro d'Italia, we're now on a 203-kilometre stage, taking the rise from Selva Gardena over to Bormio. So we're now up in northern Italy here, where the mountains abound, and there are plenty of them again today, ups and downs all day, beginning on the Mendola Pass and then moving across to the giant, the Gavia Pass. And there's the incline of that, taking them up to a massive height of 2,620 metres. And if you count in feet, that's 8,600 feet. And that's where we join the action now. Kepi Gonzalez has gone over the top of the Mendola Pass, and behind him Gutierrez and Mazzolini. But the situation is changing a little bit now.
On the Paso di Gavia, although the average fill is around about 8 to 10%, there are sections of the Gavia at 15% in gradient, and that really is unbelievable. This is the man who was on the attack yesterday, leading the group at the moment. Where's number 91, Gilberto Simoni? Alongside him, Francesco Casagrande. In this group as well, there is Vladimiro Belli, and a little further down in difficulty today is the man who wears the yellow jersey of the Mercatone Uno squad, Stefano Garzelli. He's trying to pull himself back into the bike race right now, but at the moment he's been put into serious problems.
Well, you get some idea there just how steep this climb is. Francesco Casagrande is there. There's the situation. 2 minutes 20 back to this group of Francesco Casagrande. Here are the troublemakers out front at the moment, led by Kepi Gonzalez, who's trying now to lift the King of the Mountains for a 3rd time in the Giro. But in fact, Casagrande, after his ride yesterday, is currently the leader in the King of the Mountains competition, as he does lead also in the pink jersey competition.
He's now coming to the front of this group. He's the one setting the tempo, and once again Ivan Gotti has recovered and managed to pull himself into this group. He's never really looked very comfortable, Phil, but he always seems to be able to recover recover and keep himself in contact with the possibility of riding a high place in the overall standing. Somehow, I don't think Ivan Gotti's got it in his legs this year so far. The man who now appears to be becoming the serious challenger is Gilberto Simoni, the Lamprey rider there on the left-hand side. He has got plenty of power and he is always prepared to attack.
Well, one man who certainly hasn't got it in his legs right now, Paul, is Marco Pantani. He's reported to be 10 minutes behind this little group of riders here.
This is the Calme squad. The man in the front is doing a great job, Danilo De Luca, although he's not able to follow the accelerations now of Kepi Gonzalez. He was in a leading group of riders, Danilo De Luca, and at one stage he was in fact the pink jersey again on the road.
Yes, he was. He started off the attacks today, a group of 16 of them. He was highest placed in that, which got more than the 5 minutes 49 seconds he was behind overall. And so he became for a while the pink jersey, but that's all over for him now, as we continue to see the action being portrayed here at the front. Victor Pena is the rider from Vitalicio. They are having a great tour, and they're not yet in the Tour de France and are hoping for a wild card.
Well, a lot of teams are still hoping for that wild card. Kelme are also looking to get themselves an invitation into the Tour de France, and that will be announced just after the Giro d'Italia. The man making the serious damage on the front, though, is Kepi Gonzalez. He's a great climber. He's won stages in the Giro before, and he's won stages in the Tour de France. At the moment, he is just trying to get himself over the summit of this called the Gavia. The Gavia was the scene a few years ago of that dramatic victory of Andy Hampsten in the Giro d'Italia, where the race was almost stopped because of snow. Hampsten stopped, like many of the other riders, to put on a racing cape and managed to race through those incredible conditions on a day that saw a man by the name of Eric Brooking get blown out of proportions.
Well, I must say the conditions are considerably better today, and good clear visibility for our pictures here. Stefano Garzelli, Kepi Gonzalez, having won the climb of the Mendola Pass, which came soon after the start today, looking to be climbing into the green jersey of leadership of the King of the Mountains, if he can keep this up, where what he really wants now is to get over the top of this climb first. And I'm not too sure whether Rafael Cardenas or the other rider just behind here, Pena, can do anything about it anyway.
Well, Pena seems to be suffering quite a bit, and it's quite remarkable because we're now, in fact, looking at 4 Colombians on the attack in the mountains. This may well be, Phil, the resurgence of Colombian cycling. It looks there as if we're looking down on Paolo Lanfranchi, who is up alongside Danilo De Luca. De Luca really has been a great revelation in this Giro d'Italia, and I'm sure we'll see a lot more of him in the years to come, because at the front of the bike race he was on the attack. He was trying to get himself that pink jersey when all hopes had really disappeared from his shoulders, and he went out on that very long and brave attack. But just now he's showing that he's a little bit limited in the big high mountains.
And I'll tell you what, Paul, you can feel the temperature dropping here as we go back to the leaders, now high up the pass here, the Gavia. Danilo De Luca and Lanfranchi are climbing in 4th and 5th positions. They are the next two on the road here. The yellow jersey is still looking at a couple of, pink jersey rather, still looking at a couple of minutes further down the road and hoping to peg them back. I don't think he'd be too worried about these riders in front, because the men he fears most are pretty close to him. He's going to have to watch out, though, for Simoni, whose route seems to be coming right back into this race.
Well, Kepi Gonzalez not asking anybody for help at all here. You can see he's been a professional since 1992 and always been a big man when it comes to the huge mountain stages of either Giro d'Italia or the Tour de France. This is the group now of the pink jersey of Francesco Casagrande, and once again, as the slope gets steeper, this man Ivan Gotti is put into difficulty. Up alongside him there, you can see wearing number 62 is Vladimiro Belli. Dario Frigo, who was high in the rankings yesterday, has disappeared from this group. He's a little bit further down, but I'm sure he will ride sensibly and try and keep himself in the bike race, because he has, over the last couple of days, become a real revelation in this Giro.
There's still a little way to go to the top of the pass here, and nobody able or willing to work with Kepi Gonzalez, this fabulous little climber from Colombia, as he continues to go up the mountain here. The snow still melting up here. That's when it's not freezing, because temperatures don't stay above freezing too long when there's this much snow around. But at least we can see as we get up towards the summit of the climb now. Just look at how deep the snow drifts are on the left of this mountain here.
Unbelievable. It really is cold. The advantage they have is 2 minutes over the pink jersey group of Francesco Casagrande. Casagrande now accelerating. He wants to try and get as much time as possible between himself and Garzelli and Tonkov and the rest. Gotti now not able to follow, but as we approach the summit of the climb, Kepi Gonzalez is the man going over in first place.
And that's enough to give him the lead in the King of the Mountains competition. He goes over there ahead of Felix Cardenas and Victor Peña is in third. Now, who's going to make it? This is the replay of the leaders going over. Who's going to make it from Luca, who's just behind, and also Paolo Lanfranchi.
You see these guys taking serious precautions now to make sure they don't get too cold, because on a descent like this, the chill factor is absolutely unbelievable. As they get towards the summit of the climb, Danilo De Luca gets himself nice and covered up. They're going to go over the top there in 4th place and 5th place for Paolo Lanfranchi. He too is getting himself caped up for the descent. On the descents, Phil, when they're approaching speeds of 60 miles an hour, it gets awfully cold because of the chill factor, and it is well below freezing up at the top of this mountain today.
It is very, very cold, and in case you're wondering what gears they used on that climb today, they chose between a 23 and up to a 25 rear sprocket. That's how steep that climb was, using the usual 39 inside chainring.
Well, this is the descent now. You can see just how lucky we are to be racing over the Gavia at the moment, because until around about 3 weeks ago, this road was completely blocked. The third group on the road, I should say, is Francesco Casagrande. There with him is Buenahora, and also with him as well is the man who is the biggest challenger, I think, to him so far, Phil, Gilberto Simoni. And there's a quick recovery there coming from Ivan Gotti and Vladimir Obelli just getting onto the back of the group.
Well, Vladimir Obelli is having a superb ride as he comes over the top. This is Garzelli and Frigo. And they're over the top as well. They're all within touch of each other on the way down. 2 minutes 14, the gap there. Over to, again, Gonzalez, remember. Just a couple of seconds behind the pink jersey. As we move back up to the front with the leader now. He's pulled on that racing cape to keep out the chill. And now making his way down. He'll soon be in the warmer part of the course.
Well, 50 miles an hour for the descent at the moment for Kepi Gonzalez, and you can see he's starting to pick up the pace as much as possible. But you know, that group behind Phil has got some very serious challenges in it, and we still are an awful long way to go to the finish. I make it around about 32 kilometers to the finish line from the summit of the Gavia, and with the big group behind, they may well be able to pick up Kepi Gonzalez, who is not reputed as a great descender. The problem that he has is he's not very heavy at all. He weighs in at around about 52 kilograms.
Well, we saw poor old Kepi fall off once in this race. He's fallen off, in fact, a number of times off our camera as well. But let's not wish him ill on the way down here, because this is not an easy descent at all. And if you try to catch up with the leader, then you're going to have to take 1 or 2 risks. And as you can see, it's damping a little bit out there, so the roads are reasonably wet.
Stefano Garzelli is also going to take some risks on the descent to try and pull himself back up to the pink jersey group of Francesco Casagrande. And now we can see that the regrouping is happening as we speak.
Yeah, all back together. Buenahora was the rider who's just tagged on the back there with Gotti as this little group of 4 now. And then there's 3, 6, 7. So we're going to have 11 or 12 riders getting themselves together there. Then they can concentrate on the few leaders. General regrouping, I think, because that's De Luca on the left of our picture. Here's Lanfranchi. And this is going to be all against the one lone leader now.
In fact, I think Kepi Gonzalez has been brought into the fold as well here, and it looks as if it's all coming back together as we come into the town and find that we've got 10 kilometers to go to the finish. So the whole of the group have managed to pull themselves back together, but one man missing from this group at the moment is Stefano Garzelli.
Well, he'll be feeling pretty happy with his day out now, Francesco Casagrande, because there is Gilberto Simoni on his right. He's got everybody back in. It looks as though Tonkov is trying to get back on terms here, but he is losing time at the moment, Paul, and it's not been a good day for him at all.
Been a bad day once again for Tonkov. He's got there with him Andrea Noe, and also Paolo Lanfranchi has dropped off the back of this group. And in fact, Stefano Garzelli hasn't given up yet. He's still trying to get himself up to the pink jersey group of Francesco Casagrande.
Well, I find that amazing if, in fact, Lanfranchi has dropped off the back here. Tonkov, okay, he's got Noah with him, but Noah isn't doing any work. He's sitting behind him.
Well, it's a bad day for the Mapei squad today. They've completely blown to pieces on the big slopes of the Gavia as we rejoin this group. Danilo De Luca must certainly be a big favourite to try and get the stage victory here, Phil, because he is a very fast finisher. But I would think after a tough day in the saddle like this, he may well not quite have what it takes to take out the stage victory. There is Stefano Garzelli coming down there, so that is a great recovery by him. And maybe by the bottom of this descent, he will make the junction.
Well, I have to tell you this, that the weather is not very nice on this side of the mountain pass at all. As we get lower, the rain gets heavier and the roads get that little bit more slippery. And Francesco Casagrande again showing everybody else the way down the mountains. He is just not afraid of dropping down these descents at all. but it's a sharp piece of wheel following there by Simoni into the last kilometre. So Casagrande in with a chance here now of taking the stage win at the end of this tough day in the mountains. But Simoni looks to have himself in the best position.
Well, he's trying to get him to come forward, move forward, come on, we can keep working together towards the finish line. Simoni's thinking more about the stage victory at the moment. He got robbed the other day and now he wants to try and get revenge. Francesco Casagrande has got on first position here, Phil. Come on, work with me, but you know, behind they're all starting to recover. There's a big response coming here now. Vladimiro Belli moves up alongside.
Well, I can't believe also, Paul, that Eddie Mazzolini is the Polte boy who's ridden such a great race. There he is there. He's been out in these groups all day today and he's still survived. He's in the kill here now because as they start to go to the finish, they force the race leader to take the lead. And in fact, Gilberto Simoni has no intention of going by him until he gets a good view of the finishing banner. And goodness knows what Vladimiro Belli wants to do. He looks a bit boxed in, actually. But they're going to have to make now. Eddie Mazzolini is going to have a go. He swung right across to the other side of the road as the pack behind were trying to get on terms. And Gilberto Simoni having none of it. He's chasing after him, and he's got time on his side here. As he links up with him, he goes straight past him, and this is going to be a win for Simoni. Gilberto Simoni comes clear, gets Lampre the win. Second is Mazzolini. Great ride for him. Casagrande is third and Vladimiro Belli fourth, and I think that was Belli's teammate Dario Frigo has gone over there in fifth place, and the rest are coming in now, all with time gaps. What a great day out this has been for Francesco Casagrande, even if he has conceded the win to Simoni.
Well, this is another look at that. What a greatly timed sprint that was by Simoni. He forced Casagrande to do all of the tempo over the last couple of kilometers there. And in fact, a great response by Eddie Mazzolini, as you said, in many of the breakaways on the day. And Casagrande had to be happy with third. Stefano Garzelli made a great recovery, though, Phil, to keep himself in touch in seventh place.
Well, absolutely delighted. I'm not surprised. Simoni still very much in the frame to win the Giro d'Italia, and he gets a stage win as well now, which is always a pleasing thing to do. Overall, the situation is still extremely tight at the top of the Giro d'Italia this year. Casagrande still the leader, only 33 seconds in front of Garzelli, 57 now in front of Simoni, who comes into third, and Belli is still there as well. And today's stage, the riders now running away from the mountains for a reasonably flat race. They start just on the edge of the hills, then they run down to Brescia, where they'll finish not too far above sea level, just over 140 meters. And it should be a reasonable day, 180 kilometers the ride, and now the GC may not change, and as it looks, Paul, the sprinters are going to have their day here.
Well, this has been a very tough circuit around here in Brescia, 3 laps, and each time there's been a very tough climb. The attack now coming from the Lampre squad, and this is Gabriele Misaglia trying to get off the front and surprise all of the sprinters. The response coming from behind from one of the riders from Fassa Bortolo, but this has been an unbelievable stage today. The last 40 kilometers have been ripped off at a roaring pace.
And we're into the last kilometre now, and it is going to be a bunch sprint. No Cipollini, of course, anymore, as Massalia tries to hold them off here. He's a very useful rider indeed, but the speed of the bunch coming across the promenade there is going to bring it all back together again here, I think. But there's no organisation in this bunch sprint now, as they all try to see their chance at victory as they're making the run at it now. And we've got in there the Fassa Bortolo rider, I think is Alessandro Petacci. He's being challenged here by the Sella Italia rider, and the Seiko riders are coming in as well. This is going to be a very strange sprint indeed here, because the sprinters have no lead-out men whatsoever.
Well, you know, that's because of the fact that Mario Cipollini's not here. There's a big switch across the road there, everybody. There's a crash, so half a dozen riders have gone down there, but that's not affected the front of the bike race. It's the Seiko riders on the front taking up the pace, but I'm sure 1 or 2 riders went down there. We saw the bikes flying.
Well, I think you're right, but the rider who's hit the front is Angel Vizioso, the Kelme rider, and he's come well clear, and he's caught them napping, this youngster on the Kelme team, who is a great sprinter. He's only a young boy, and he's got a victory here.
Well, this is the point of where the crash was. The crash happened there was Fabrizio Guidi just fighting to keep himself upright, switching right across the road there. You can see the sprint opening up, a few hands coming off. Biagio Conti lifting his hands off the bars there. There is the moment. You can see Vizioso coming through there. He's boxed in against the barriers, but then he sees the gap opening, switches across there, opens the gap, pushes Silvio Martinello out of the way, and in the lunge for the line, he's the man who's got the fastest sprint, and a great win for Kelme. Very rare to see them winning a bunch sprint.
Well, I can tell you what, Paul, that move has again not gone down well with the judges. Watch it again. There is the clack, as he hit Silvio Martinello. Didn't look intentional to me, but he's been relegated to the back of the field. That is the confirmation, but the judges have just told us he is not there. So Biagio Conti has got the stage victory ahead of Alessandro Petacci. Well, I think they were unjustly treated there as we move on to the next stage of 102 kilometres. And so does the race here, because they asked all of the Kelme riders to come to the front, and they have delayed the start in sympathy with the disqualification yesterday of the rider Angel Vicioso, because they felt he was very badly treated.
Well, I have to say, Phil, you know, I really don't understand the judges very much these days. You know, sprinting is a dangerous part of the sport, and the guy's telling him to get his hands in the air in celebration of the victory that most of the bike riders in the race feel that he should have had.
When professional cyclists don't agree with them, then the judges should look at what they're actually doing, I think. Anyway, let's move on, Paul. This is the final kilometre of the stage. It was again a very routine stage finish here, as the riders now lining up for the finishing sprint on this, the 16th stage of the Giro d'Italia. And again, the bunch is coming down to the finish all together.
Well, a big lead out here organised by Seiko. They probably feel Biagio Conti's got a chance of getting himself high up in the rankings there. Look out there, the blue jerseys, Fabrizio Guidi, but you know, a lot of riders slowing off now, moving forward at the moment. Silvio Martinello is the man right very close to the front there for the Polti squad, but they're all queuing up right behind him.
And there's no sign of Vicioso either, keeping out of the way here now as they try to sort it out amongst themselves. Watch out for that blue jersey, he's right on the shoulder. He has led the intergiro competition virtually since day one, and he's made a lovely run on the left here, has Fabrizio Guidi, and this is going to be a pleasing victory for him. Or is it? Yes, it is, just on the line. That was Stephen de Jong who got second. He was placed on stage one, if you remember. Biagio Conti, who was given the win yesterday, gets third this time around. Now this young gentleman at the back here, I think it's Mario Sciria, he's on the telephone. But there is the winner of the day.
But just look there, Phil, you can see Stefan de Jong as he lunged his bicycle, he pulled his foot out but still managed to hold on for second place. I don't think it affected the result of the race. But still at the top of the leaderboard, Francesco Casagrande leading the bike race by 33 seconds from Stefano Garzelli and 57 seconds from Gilberto Simoni. No change yet in the overall standings.
And on this stage there shouldn't be any change either. 236 kilometres, taking the rider away from Meda to Genoa. And this a beautiful city, of course, and the riders running really fairly low level, just one small third category hill by the finish. And I can tell you a breakaway going with 115 kilometres to go. Alvaro Gonzalez de Galdiano on his own virtually the whole day. 37th overall at the start, 38 minutes behind, and the bunch was still 5 minutes behind when he came home alone. They saw him a couple of times before he finally crossed the finishing line, and the main field themselves running in, and he didn't have to worry about them at all. Far too far ahead, Paul.
Absolutely, the big sprint going to Jans Verada as they came across the line, and still Dimitri Konyshev getting himself some points, but the day certainly belonged to Alvaro Gonzalez de Galdiano. A great breakaway move by him, going clear with 115 kilometres to go and surviving with just 24 seconds on the line.
And that after he had a lead at one point of 7 minutes 10 seconds. It was a dramatic chase down indeed. On now to the next stage of the Giro. This is stage 18, and the riders now are on a very different type of terrain indeed.
Well, this is going to be a big sort out once again on the attack. Santiago Blanco trying to blow the race apart, and Hernan Buenahora is now the man trying to get himself across. This is the very select group though of the pink jersey, 181 Francesco Casagrande. The Podesto rider on the front there is Darius Baranovski, setting the tempo on the front, trying to set something up maybe for his teammate Leonardo Pipoli. Pipoli feels today that with this very difficult mountaintop finish at Prato Nevoso, he has got the chance of getting himself the win.
Well, so far today it's been the Kelme riders who've been doing all the dictating of the pace, and certainly now it looks as though we've got here Noe trying to get in on the act as well. And also the on-high boys of Vicioso, they are riding so well in this race. There is Simoni
Simoni, there is Leonardo Pipoli right on the back there. This is the man that they're trying to set it up for, the Banesto team on the front. You know, they've had a victory for the Kelme squad. The Vitalicio Seguros team has had a victory as well, and there's an awful lot of fight between the Spanish teams for supremacy. And today I'm certain that these men on the front are trying to set it out for Leonardo Pipoli. He's a very good climber, one of the smallest bike riders in the Giro d'Italia, and that's why we've got Banesto on the front setting this unbelievable pace.
Darius Baranowski, a very good rider indeed, but with the news that the abandon of one of the riders of Panaria now, we are left with only one rider in that team, Vladimir Duma. All 8 other riders have given up in the race now.
Well, on the front, Andrea Noah there setting the tempo and moving backwards pretty rapidly. That looked like Hernan Buenahora. He was on the attack a few moments ago, and now he's gone straight back through the field. Pavel Tonkov has come forward. He's trying to put pressure onto the pink jersey. 5 kilometers to go. This is the man at the front of the bike race, Santiago Blanco, a great bike rider. An awful lot of controversy surrounding his transfer from the Banesto squad to the Vitalicio squad a couple of years ago, but now he is still to confirm that he is one of Spanish great riders.
Yes, that became the subject of a bitter court battle, but he is now with this other Spanish team. Jose Enrique Gutierrez has been the big mountain climber today, winning the climb of the Melogno and the climb of the Giavetti. But now they're looking out to see who is going to get up towards the finish and win the climb at the top.
Well, Paolo Lanfranchi accelerating to try and stay in contact with this group, the group of all of the main leaders. It looks as if Buenahora has got himself back into the group. There was Belli, but this is the man leading the bike race at the moment. And you know, not really filled by very much at all. The last time check was around about 25 seconds. Now it's Simoni who attacks. He's trying to get away. Once again, this man is such an aggressive bike rider on the climbs. He feels he has the makings of the winner of the Giro d'Italia this year, but immediately the response comes from Belli. Right on his wheel is Casagrande, and Stefano Garzelli is up there in 4th.
Well, they've got to follow each other now with just over a minute covering all 3, or just under a minute covering the top 3 overall in the race. Every move could be a winning move for the Giro d'Italia. This rider here is enacting another battle a bit lower down the overall. He lies in 12th position. These are now the riders trying to chase down with Casagrande, number 181, the man they're all looking to now. But Garzelli and the first 3 in the Tour here, lying 2nd, 3rd and 4th in the line as we look at them now. They are following each other everywhere.
Well, Belli was the man putting the acceleration on the front there. Where's 62 for Fassa Bortolo? And now moving up the outside, Simoni. Once again, Phil, he wants to attack. He wants to try and get himself closer to the overall lead. He's not very far down in the standings, inside 1 minute, and this is an attack that Francesco Casagrande has to respond to.
Well, this is an amazing attack, and what a cheeky attack. He lost a little bit of impetus there as he run in amongst the motorbikes, but here comes the response now as Stefano Garzelli. What surprises me is the pink jersey doesn't respond.
Well, you know what? I don't think he's having a good day. You know, he is in serious difficulty. He's not been able to respond to that attack by Garzelli, and we may be seeing the change in the overall leadership of this bike race. Stefano Garzelli and Simoni, 2nd and 3rd in the standings, are off the front.
Well, if they get out of sight, they can fight out the next wearer of the pink jersey here, because that's Frigo who's joined up.
In fact, that was Vladimiro Belli who's got across there. He was 4th in the standings. So 2nd, 3rd and 4th overall have now attacked Francesco Casagrande. Simoni is the first one round the corner. Garzelli is in 2nd place. Belli is in 3rd place. And Francesco Casagrande now, Phil, for the first time, is not looking like a strong leader.
Absolutely, and in fact the spectators here really shouldn't be doing that, because the riders can be disqualified if they're pushed by the spectators, and we wouldn't want that to happen to Gilberto Simoni at this crucial stage now of the Giro d'Italia. This is the leader, Santiago Blanco, but I think they're coming up on him.
Well, Santiago Blanco does not look comfortable now. He keeps getting out of the saddle, trying to survive, trying to keep the pressure on. But one other man has got across to that group now. That is Leonardo Pipoli. He is certainly looking for the victory right now, and this man is starting to lose ground. The pink jersey of Francesco Casagrande is falling away from the lead at the moment. Simoni has now caught the first man on the road. There is Santiago Blanco. We are now looking at a leading group of 5 riders and 5 very good climbers.
And now can Santiago Blanco do anything? Look at the bobbing and weaving there of Stefano Garzelli. Leonardo Pipoli sitting here at the back and not worried about doing anything. Vladimiro Belli is there. Sorry about a little bit of problem with the picture here as we look back here now to Buenahora. The pink jersey knows he's got it all to do, Paul, but look, he is bringing this race back, and yet he's had to just hold his rhythm. They must have slowed down.
They must have slowed down. They're thinking about the stage victory right now. Stefano Garzelli is the man on the front. We are inside 2 kilometers to go to the finish. Blanco, Garzelli, Simoni, Pipoli, and he's done it. He's on the back.
Well, they gave it back to Casagrande there. They didn't help the Garzelli, the only one left to work at the front. Maybe they couldn't do it anymore. Maybe they were also on their limit, because there is Simoni now as they come up towards the finish here. And Garzelli looks now as though he's made his move, but certainly making his move is Gilberto Simoni. But this time, I think Casagrande was paying attention.
Well, he was paying attention. He's moving forward now. He knows he has to stay in contact with these guys, and if he wants to keep himself in the pink jersey. You know, Garzelli is only 35 seconds, 33 seconds behind in the overall standings, and he now knows that there's a possibility of getting himself a bonus at the finish. Francesco Casagrande must be very attentive now, Phil, but watch out. There's also the possibility of a late attack coming from Leonardo Pipoli, because the Benesto team have tried to set it up for him. Pavel Tonkov attacks.
Well, Tonkov tries it now. It's amazing, but they're trying every move here to win the stage. In Tonkov's case, I don't think he's really a contender anymore now for final overall in this race. More than 2 minutes behind, but Garzelli again jumps on his wheel and locks in, and was slowly breaking that leading group up here. But Casagrande is following wheels and not attacking. That's a good indicator. He is not feeling good at all.
Well, you know, this was the man who looked like he was untouchable in the mountains, but as we get to the latter part of this Giro d'Italia, now we're starting to see chinks in his armour. He's had to respond to an awful lot of attacks. I thought he was going to get blown away there, and he really must have dug deep, Phil, to pull himself back into this group. Pavel Tonkov now is on the front. Stefano Garzelli now looks like the next man to be put into difficulty. And watch out, because I'm fairly certain soon we will get an attack coming from Leonardo Pipoli, the rider in the white jersey from Benesto, and there he goes.
He must have seen the kite at the same time as you, Paul, because he's gone now. Pipoli looks over. You see, they're even chasing him down, and he's no threat overall either. He's in 13th place right now, but they're on him straight away. Garzelli, very impressive. Watches everything, and now the move goes on. That's Belli that's gone on the far side of the road. Now he's having a go.
Well, everybody wants to win this stage. This is a mountain top finish here, and you know, everyone together at this stage of the game is really quite remarkable. Francesco Casagrande, I think, Phil, now has recovered, because every time this group splits, he's always on the back end of it, staying at the front end of the race. Pavel Tonkov is moving further back down that group. He's obviously not in a superb day as we have seen him in the past. Vladimiro Belli now is the man on the front. Pipoli in second place, in an ideal position to set up the sprint.
Well, they've all tried, haven't they? One after the other, and they've all failed right now. At 700 meters to go to the finish, it is still anybody's race, and Pipoli goes again. It might well be Garzelli who takes this one out, because of the way he's riding. He's marking everything.
Well, there's Simoni up into 4th place there. This is the man who's already got a stage victory and a 2nd place on these stages so far of the Giro d'Italia. Leonardo Pipoli not in a good position now, because he's going to be forced to lead out. He's attacked a couple of times, and he's now going to be the man, Phil, who has to open up this sprint as we go around one of the final bends.
We are almost on the line now. Leonardo Pipoli is going to have to lead them towards it now. The others are waiting. All of the 3 riders behind have won stages. Well, all except Garzelli, that is, but he might put that to right. He's in a brilliant place to make the move now. No, he's boxed out of it as we come up towards the end now. He's got round on the other side, and Garzelli has got the legs. Look at this sprint from Garzelli. He is going to put his mark on this race, although it's an awful long way to the line. He's hit the front rather early, but I think he's got the speed. Look at the face of Gilberto Simoni, and Casagrande just struggling to stay on terms, and they're not going to win the stage. So he gets the stage there, and he might even get a small time gap as well.
Well, there will be a time gap, I'm sure, between 1 or 2 of those riders. Pavel Tonkov also tailing off the back. This is Andrea Noe just coming in now with Santiago Blanco, the man who was a serious animator. But what a great sprint here by this man, Garzelli, Phil. He opened up the gas, and at the end of a stage like that, to explode like that really is quite remarkable. But check out the face there on the right of Francesco Casagrande. Today he was put into serious difficulty.
So the man in the all-yellow strip, but this isn't the Tour de France, this is the Giro d'Italia. Stefano Garzelli, who's 2nd overall in the race, is going to close in a little bit now. In fact, they gave Simoni and Casagrande the same time, and the others went at 2 seconds, with Buenahora at 8. So the pink jersey managed to save all of his time. Garzelli just keeps him a little time bonus to 25 seconds now, while Gilberto Simoni is 3rd. And on we go now as we stay in the mountains for a pretty rough day out in the Alps. And the high point of the tour, the Col dell'Agnello, which is the Cimo Coppi, which means the high point of the tour at 2,748 meters, over 9,000 feet. And now we're going to join the action on the road. The Col d'Izoard in France follows, and we're looking here at some images of one of the greatest cyclists the world has ever known, Fausto Coppi, the Campion de Campissimo. And winning the special prize here, absolutely fitting, number 151, Paul Kepi Gonzalez, King of the Mountains.
What a great bike rider, what an aggressive man on the mountain stages. This now is Gilberto Simoni coming up for second place, and this is the group of Francesco Casagrande. Casagrande once again being put into difficulty, not able to respond to that attack by Gilberto Simoni, who goes over there with Paolo Lanfranchi.
A very, very good move indeed. Kepi Gonzalez going over the top with a minute 28 over Lanfranchi and Simoni. Then Roberto Conti and Casagrande in a group at 1 minute 49. Here they come as they will go under the banner. And again, the race has been fragmented by a massive climb, but we're now on into France, and the Col d'Izoard will take us down to the finish in Briansson. And it's 176 kilometers in total today from Saluzzo. But the Col d'Izoard at this time of the year can often be quite a dangerous place because the snows are barely clear in the month of May. And we're also climbing up, Paul, at Briansson into the old town too.
Absolutely, a very difficult finish there. Cimo Coppi, 2,748 meters for the Col dell'Angelo, but now on the slopes of the Col d'Izoard, that levels out at 2,361 meters at the top. And you know, this is the big attack. The attacks are coming here at the front of the bike race, and once again Pavel Tonkov is put into difficulty. Marco Pantani, though, Phil, is certainly in the action.
Well, it's the first time we've seen him, but maybe he's happy to be going on to French roads because he stayed in this group. He had a little bit of a yo-yo, but he's now very much here, and they must be wondering where he came from because we haven't seen him for 2.5 weeks. But now here in the Alps, he seems to be riding very, very well. A number of times he's attacked Paul, and he's gone back and waited for Garzelli.
Well, I think he's trying to set something up for Garzelli today, but he keeps getting caught out by this man. Gilberto Simoni is on a flyer today. He's trying to blow the race to pieces. He's trying to get rid of the man in the pink jersey. The man in the pink jersey there, Francesco Casagrande, is in all kinds of difficulties here, but Marco Pantani is having his best day. He is riding as he did do in the past. He is riding as he has on many occasions throughout his career as a superb mountain climber. He is trying to put the pressure on the pink jersey, and he's trying to drag Garzelli away to the lead.
Well, he said a while back now in the race he would not win the Giro d'Italia, but he would have an influence on the person who did. And now it is 2-1 against Casagrande here, and the man setting the pace is the climber himself, the pirate Marco Pantani. And Garzelli will be rather pleased to see him around, I think, because they are pretty good friends.
He certainly will. There you can see the climber Kepi Gonzalez. This is further down the slopes. Pavel Tonkov again, Phil, on the big mountains, not able to be competitive, not able to stay in contact with the group. But Gilberto Simoni for the moment is the man having the biggest advantage. He is the man that every time there's an acceleration from Pantani, he's able to follow it, and he is able to put Francesco Casagrande into difficulty. The man who has set the race alight, though, today in the green jersey as King of the Mountains is Kepi Gonzalez, and still he won't give up.
No, but he's falling back now. He has won the big one of this tour, the Cimo Coppi on the Col dell'Agnello, which is the ore category, the higher and higher of the races. Now there's the composition of the group. Garzelli, Pantani, Casagrande, Simoni and Kepi Gonzalez himself. And now yet another acceleration here by the pirate. They've no reason to chase him because he's too far behind, but it looks as though they're prepared to, especially Simoni.
Well, Simoni can see the chance of a leapfrog to victory here. He's not very far behind in the overall standings. You know, at the start of the day, he was third place and he was only 53 seconds behind. He doesn't need very much to get the lead away from Francesco Casagrande, but the man at the front, Marco Pantani, is trying to rip this pace to pieces, and he wants to try and do it for his own teammate. Every time he accelerates and he sees that Garzelli can't follow, he sits up and waits for him.
It's absolutely amazing because he has this great style. He just seems to ride on the bottom of the handlebars there and just kick out of the pedals and rip them apart. I've never seen him look this good for over a year now, and in fact he's put Kepi Gonzalez in trouble because of his escape earlier on the big climb. and Kepi looks as though he's just settling into a lonely climb up the Izoire now.
Well, Kepi Gonzalez has done enough to win the King of the Mountains competition. That's what his aim was on this stage today, to get as many points as possible. This now is Gilberto Simoni, wears 91. He again is trying to get rid of the man in pink, Francesco Casagrande. But again, Phil, Pantani is sitting up and waiting for his teammate.
Well, he's now going to have to work something out here, because Simoni has sensed what the game is and decided to go alone, and he knows he seems to have worked out that Pantani will go back and look for Garzelli. That's exactly what is happening, look. Well, this is a very unselfish act by Marco Pantani. He'll be making himself a lot of friends again around the world. He drops back to what appears to be his double back there with his shaven head.
Unbelievable. He's dropped back for his teammate and he's going to pace him back up there. That's a little bit dangerous, that maneuver there. You know, some of these people get in so close to the right riders on a mountain climb like this, and they're going to have to try and keep them back if possible. The slopes of the Izoire are almost over, and Gilberto Simoni has the advantage, but he's not going to hold back Marco Pantani right now, Phil, because Marco Pantani is pulling himself back up to the attack there from the Lamprey rider, and they are not yet managing to get rid of Francesco Casagrande, who today has been on the defensive on every slope.
He hasn't responded, has he, other than following the wheels? He certainly isn't taking part in launching attacks to cool them all down. He's not riding as well as he was, that's for sure, Francesco Casagrande. By day 9 of this race, we thought he was going to build huge margins over the field, but there's been a number of riders come out and clipped his wings, not least Garzelli and Simoni.
Well, further down the slopes there, we got a quick glimpse of Pavel Tonkov, and he was joined there by Leonardo Pippoli, and somewhere in the middle is his own teammate Paolo Lanfranchi. This is the front of the bike race, though. This is the man, Marco Pantani, who was kicked out of the Giro d'Italia almost 12 months ago to the day because of a high measurement of hematocrit. And since then, he's had all kinds of psychological and physical problems, Phil, trying to keep himself in the sport of cycling. And only 48 hours to go before the Giro d'Italia did he admit that he was going to start.
Well, I think everybody's pleased he did, but his affair with the doping affair is not over yet, because he will come to court later this year, and then we'll find out perhaps the truth surrounding the whole situation. This is Pavel Tonkov. He's a bit further back down the mountain today as we all start the plunge now down towards Briansson. But the climbing isn't finished, because we climb up through the old town, come out of the old town and onto the finishing line, which itself is slightly uphill.
Well, Pantani must be very frustrated here. You can see the very open part here towards the summit of the Col d'Izoard. It is such a hot and baking place in the summer months, but for the moment it is not that hot at all, because it's only just in the last couple of days that the clouds have opened up to allow these riders to be able to see this race. And now Pantani is on the front on one of the most famous climbs in all of cycling history, the Col d'Izoard. Garzelli and Pantani are working together as a team, trying to get rid of Francesco Casagrande. But for me, Phil, the man who has the best legs of the whole day is Gilberto Simoni.
He has had a great last few days in the Tour, and the same can't be said for Pavel Tonkov, who's now finding this race very, very difficult. But look, again, Simoni is trying to hurt the riders. Pantani has the legs, but he will only go as fast as Garzelli can follow. But once more, the gap is bridged.
What a great climber, what a great teammate as well. Today he is working unselfishly for Stefano Garzelli. He's trying to really thrash it out with Francesco Casagrande. And Casagrande himself is doing a pretty good job, because he's responded to all of these attacks. He's managing to keep himself in the bike race at the moment. And Simoni is not going to give up. As long as there's a slope in this year's Giro d'Italia, he is going to attack on it.
Well, Simoni in third place, the place he finished last year, would like first now. But he's still got to get rid of these very limpet-like riders who are staying right behind him. There's Pantani. He's hurting himself right now to hold on to Simoni, who's got a good tempo going here. Garzelli and Casagrande can't see what they look like. He doesn't know how hard they're suffering here. He has just kept himself by following the wheels. There's so few seconds between Garzelli and Casagrande, you know. It's going to be one terrific time trial coming up tomorrow.
It certainly is. It's going to be very difficult. Simoni, though, wants to try and get a few more seconds back. This is the face of the pirate. His teammate looks like almost a double as they come towards the summit here of the Col d'Izoard. Pantani again getting out of the saddle. The fluidity, Phil, has certainly come back to his pedaling action, and I think in a few weeks' time, when we go to the start of the Tour de France, a lot of people will be worried now about the return of Marco Pantani. Francesco Casagrande, for the moment, is on a seriously defensive role. He's trying to stay in contact with this group, and he will be attacked all the way to the summit. He doesn't have much longer to hold on, but he must try and keep in contact with this group, because as long as he can stay with Garzelli and Simoni, he's still got the chance of taking this pink jersey down into Milano.
Well, I wonder if he is thinking of the time trial tomorrow, which is a brute, leaving Briansson over Montgenèvre and up to Sestriere, and whether he's just sitting there and trying to conserve as much energy as possible for the big showdown, because it does appear now, if this race continues like this to Briansson, that the time trial will decide the winner of the Tour.
Absolutely. This is Pavel Tonkov in contact there with his teammate Paolo Lanfranchi. They are trying to keep themselves high in the overall standings. Pavel Tonkov has been put into difficulty on every one of the big mountain passes of this year's Giro d'Italia, and it's only really thanks to his teammates Andrea Noe and Paolo Lanfranchi that he's managed to stay up. 150 meters to go to the summit of this climb, the Col d'Izoard, and finally Garzelli moves forward, but I think it's really more of a show than anything else, because Simoni's the one opening up the acceleration.
Well, we're right up in the dizzy heights of France with the Tour of Italy, 75 metres from the top, and it looks as though Garzelli and Marco Pantani are in a little bit of trouble. And how about this for a little show of domination? Casagrande eases forward and gets the points on top of the Col d'Izoard. Garzelli follows Simoni, and then the little pirate comes up towards the top, over the top in fact. He's just hooked up again at the back.
Fuga Pantani, breakaway Pantani, that's what the people want. And amazingly, despite that rumour which still surrounds, and we still don't know the outcome of that, we won't until later on in the year, the crowds, Phil, have certainly turned out for Marco Pantani, because he has remained very popular with the spectators. This is the next two riders on the road, Lanfranchi and Pavel Tonkov, trying to pull themselves back to this leading group of four riders at the moment.
Well, Tonkov himself, despite the fact he appears to be riding below his best, is hanging around very high up the overall classification, and you've got to take your hats off to him, because he hasn't enjoyed this Giro d'Italia at all. He has always been put on the defensive.
In fact, I think Tonkov is about to make the contact here as Marco Pantani tries to get himself off the front of the group. But there is Tonkov and Lanfranchi making the contact. Like 6 riders at the head of the bike race just now, and Marco Pantani trying to get off the front on his own.
Well, the winner must come from these 6 now. It's all downhill to Briansson. Then we nip up through the old town where the streets are extremely narrow. I'm surprised they're taking the race right through the narrow streets, but we can't finish in the old town because the roads simply aren't wide enough, as you'll see shortly. So we go out the other side onto a wide finishing straight. But now there's a counter-attack again. It looks like Tonkov has gone now.
Well, it's actually Paolo Lanfranchi. I think he's moving up the outside with his teammate Tonkov, and he went straight over the top. Tonkov is now moving across the front of that group and slowing them down, so that gives advantage to Paolo Lanfranchi. But what a great attack there by Marco Pantani. The frustration must be really in the camp of Mercatone Uno now, because they're really caught not knowing exactly what to do. They wanted to try and win the stage, but they're also today trying to win the Giro d'Italia.
Well, I think you're right, and I think that'll frustrate Pantani, because I think he could have gone there but felt he shouldn't. You're right, it is Paolo Lanfranchi who's gone, this little man who's now making a big effort, having only just joined. And look at this, a split in the field, and this could be more trouble now. Simoni's been caught at the back.
In fact, there's a recovery there as well.
Yeah.
Buena Hora has come from behind. We never heard any mention at all of him, and he has now pulled himself back into the leading group. But this is not good for Marco Pantani to attack just now, because in fact Garzelli was put into difficulty. Garzelli has recovered well with Simoni, and he's pulled himself back up to Tonkov and Marco Pantani. But poor old Marco, he's got unbelievable legs today, and he is going to have to just work for his own team.
There is Buena Hora. He's done well to come back into the action as we now go past the town sign announcing Briansson. We are now heading in towards the finish, and Paolo Lanfranchi, who is not a big winner by any manner of means, looks as though he might be winning this one. A former winner of the Tour of Langkawi. That was the first race he ever won.
And what a bike race it was, and it was on the slopes of the Genting Highlands just outside of Kuala Lumpur that he took the overall lead there, and a great domination by the Mapei squad in that event. Today he's trying to get himself into this town first. This is Briansson, the gateway to the Alps, the gateway to the great climbs like the Galibier. This is the chasing group now, the group with Pavel Tonkov and all of the leaders of the Giro d'Italia, including Francesco Casagrande. Paolo Lanfranchi now, Phil, is on this interminable climb right through the very centre of Briansson.
And look at little Marco Pantani. He's free here, Paul. I think he decided to go it alone and try and catch him, because he is doing quite a descent here, kicking out of the corners and driving on, Again, Simoni is after him, and so too is Garzelli. I don't see Casagrande.
Well, as you know, Marco Pantani wasn't going to give up, but they've actually given too much advantage to the man at the front, Paolo Lanfranchi. But maybe they haven't, because Paolo Lanfranchi doesn't look too comfortable now. This is a very difficult finish. The response behind now coming from Pavel Tonkov. He's the man nailing back the Pirate. He's on the tail of the Pirate now. He won't go past him this time because he wants to try and make sure that the victory goes to the Mapei camp.
Well, they've regrouped, except this rider here, who is hurting himself but racing towards what would be a great victory for him. His previous wins, he won the Tour of Langkawi, he also won the Tour of Portugal, the Grand Prix International Portugal it's called, on the overall classification, plus a stage of that race. That is all he's won in his career, which started in 1993. And now it looks to me as though he's about to win a stage of the Giro d'Italia, and judging by his face, he is going to give it everything.
Well, he is giving it everything right now. His advantage around about 35 seconds. That last attack on the front of the group there came from Hernan Buenahora, but they're all back together now as he goes through the gate and into the Citadel. This is a very difficult finish for a bike race, and a very narrow finish too. You can see now on the front Pavel Tonkov, but the attack now once again coming from Marco Pantani.
Well, he's still pulling away from this little group, and he did it right. He did it rather like Axel Merckx did it the other week in this race, when he came onto a group and immediately attacked them. And now again going on his own, and this time with no reaction, is Marco Pantani. Now, has he left himself enough time to dance up this hill and catch Lanfranchi? Well,
Lanfranchi looks pretty comfortable now. He's getting into the very steep part. This is right through the middle of town, a very narrow place to bring a big bike race like the Giro d'Italia. His advantage is still 40 seconds. He's not losing very much, although his style doesn't look really good just now. He's just trying to get as much power into those legs as he can just to survive and hold on. He's built up at one stage almost 55 seconds, but he's starting to lose quite a bit of that. And looking back down the slopes, we cannot see Marco Pantani. But you know, if this guy falters, Phil, Pantani could well come back. In the group of the pink jersey there's no reaction.
No, and Pantani's not there, so he has consolidated his attack now. As we go up into the gates of Briansson, the old fortress that used to keep out the Italians in the old days, now it's allowing them to come in.
It's strange the way the history turns around. The Italians now are storming into the Citadel of Briansson. Out on the road, Marco Pantani is currently in second position. He's making a magnificent comeback here. He's trying to prove to the world that the Pirate is back, and he'll be flying his flag shortly in the Tour de France. But for the moment, the man who is stealing the glory is this man, Paolo Lanfranchi, the man who has worked for so many leaders over many years for the Mapei squad. He's now out through the top end of the Citadel, and fairly shortly he's going to be on the flat finishing straight.
He's done his tour of the old fortress. He's waving to the public here now because he's come to the Giro d'Italia, and at last he is going to win a stage. A little Marco is coming up, but he's not coming up quick enough. Paolo Lanfranchi gets the victory here. 5.5 hours crossing the Alps today. Look at the crowd here. We've gone right back into the town, so there's almost a minute here, and it's not so far back either to the little group that Marco Pantani left. So he's making his way up to the top of the Citadel, and shortly will be out in the home straight, but he's going to be around about a minute behind.
Well, this is a great day for Marco Pantani, because he's proved to himself more than anybody else in the sport of cycling that he is back and that he can be competitive. This might only be a second place out on the road, Phil, but this is going to be an important stepping stone for Pantani's future.
Yes, the little man is back. I nearly said the big man is back, but the little man is back. And Marco Pantani now, who I think would have won the stage today if he hadn't ridden so unselfishly in defence of Garzelli. As it is, he comes over second, around 55 seconds down he was in the end. There'll be a lot of people wanting to speak to when he crosses the line. And it looks as though Simoni has got third, Casagrande, Garzelli in that order. And they'll all be given the same time, just over a minute. In fact, they almost pulled Pantani back.
Well, they did, but for Pantani, the important thing was really to get off the front of this group. Pavel Tonkov, once again, been put into serious difficulty. He had to recuperate. Unfortunately for the Mapei squad, it was Paolo Lanfranchi who came up with the goods and gave them the victory over one of the toughest stages of the Giro d'Italia so far, the Col dell'Angelo and the Col d'Izoard.
Absolutely, and it'd be sixth place for Tonkov. Remember that it was Lanfranchi looked after him before he went on to win the stage, and Buenahora 7, and Piccoli coming home 2 minutes down in the end in 8th. But this man pulling on his team jersey, but he still has a pink jersey to own. Now we're on the eve of the time trial. It's going to be showdown time. 25 seconds to Garzelli and 49 seconds to Simoni. One of those three will win the Giro d'Italia. And because today is the 34 kilometers time trial up mountains from Briansson to the mountaintop finish of Sestriere, and this is Stefano Garzelli about to start. Just gone off in front of him is Simoni.
Well, you know, it's all going to be between these guys. 25 seconds separates Casagrande and Garzelli, and 49 seconds separates Simoni from Casagrande. It really is all between these guys, and it's going to be a very difficult time trial there. So now on the slopes of the first climb of the day, Mont Genèvre, and Marco Pantani is crossing the finishing line with a time of 17th.
And he was smiling as well, Paul. But the last man is off now, so Francesco Casagrande. It's all about these three riders now. It's not necessarily about who wins the time trial. It is all who gets the most time between those three. This is Axel Merckx here. He's coming in now with a time a little bit off the leaderboard with a 1 hour 4 minute ride.
Well, these riders are all separated by 2 minutes out on the course. Salvadelli, not a great ride by him, 25th, 1 hour and 5 minutes. A lot of riders coming into the finishing line now. This is a pretty fast time. This is Jan Hruska with a new best time of 59 minutes and 49 seconds.
He's the only one inside the hour. That is an incredible performance, Paul, and he was the man that took out the prologue, don't forget. I don't think anybody's going to beat that time because these guys aren't matching his part-way checks, but this is mano a mano now, and Casagrande is not riding as well as Garzelli.
Well, Garzelli on the left, on the right there in the yellow jersey of Mercatone, looking very comfortable. Coming up, Sergei Honchar comes across with a very good time. That's second, 1:01, Phil. He's almost 2 minutes behind Hruska.
That's a long way down, and Casagrande now is 39th at this check and away off the pace. I don't know what's wrong with him, Paul, but ever since he's left the start house, he has not had the style and fluidity.
He has not looked comfortable at all. This man, Gilberto Simoni, is doing a pretty good ride, though. This now is on the harder part of the climb. This is a very difficult time trial, you know. You have to climb first over the Col de Mont Genèvre and then up to the summit of the mountain of Sestriere. Second time for Andrea Noe, a good ride by him.
Well, he's a very, very good rider, Noe, and he's coming with a good time there. But this run here now is setting the world alight because he's pulling back his 25-second deficit and he's heading towards a pink jersey. Simoni is just about in no man's land here and should hold third.
Well, he's riding well. This is Pavel Tonkov. He would have had to do something unbelievable to win the Giro d'Italia in this time trial. He started the day 2 minutes and 46 seconds behind. Casagrande, though, Phil, does not look good. This man is digging very deep. He's got a lot of energy in his pedaling action too. He may be nodding his body somewhat, but there's almost a difference in speed visibly between these two riders on the course.
Well, at the top of the climb now, up in Sestriere, Tonkov is in 18th place. He's not enjoyed this tour, really. Simoni comes in with a 1:2:15 ride, and that too is a very good ride, but it's a question of where these two finish, and they are going, well, one's going to be quicker. I think Simoni may not be behind Casagrande. He might well beat him. But now there's a big sprint by Garzelli, and look what he's slotting in the leaderboard. Third place for Garzelli, and I think that will win in the Giro d'Italia, and so do his supporters, because here comes Casagrande, and he had to finish with a time of 1:01:31, and that's long since gone. He is going to be almost 2 minutes behind Garzelli now.
Well, he never really got into his rhythm at the bottom of the climb, Phil. He didn't look fluid. He did not look like the man that dominated on the Col de San Pellegrino in Alpe. You know, he has suffered over the last few mountain stages, and I think he was put into serious difficulty yesterday by those incessant attacks of Simoni's and Marco Pantani's. He's outside the time that he needed to finish. It will be a respectable time for him, but not good enough.
He hasn't ridden the time trials well, 1:2:58, and it's goodbye to that Maglia Rosa. Here's the result. Jan Hruska gets his second time trial win. Noe did a wonderful ride for second. Garzelli excelled here in third place, and that's his girlfriend there, as she congratulates the new leader of the Giro d'Italia with just a weekend to come, and really no terrain left for Francesco Casagrande to attack him.
Well, that was unbelievable. This man calculated it absolutely. This is the new overall standings. Garzelli leads Francesco Casagrande by 1:27, and Simoni is third now, 1:33 behind.
So we come down to the final stage from Turin into Milan, and as always it will be a bunch sprint in Milan. No opportunity now for anybody to take over the pink jersey of leadership. This little group, Paul, just ahead of the field, but the field are closing in.
They're closing in rapidly, but these guys may have timed it just to perfection. In the group at the back there is Mariano Piccoli. In the group as well, you can see one of the other sprinters, and this is all coming back together. In fact, David McKenzie is in that group a little bit further back, and they might have done it, Phil, because they're 30 seconds clear for the moment over the main field.
Well, there's a lot of work being called for here, but I don't think they're going to do it, Paul, because if you look at the speed of that peloton now, they know as they go under the last kilometre that the sprinters are going to have their day here, and Garzelli is going to win the Giro d'Italia, having taken the lead on the penultimate day of the race in the time trial. They're actually messing about, and that will cause the gap to close. Well, it's still reasonable. It's
still reasonable, around about 25 seconds, but they are looking over their shoulders all of the time. The man on the back there is Oscar Pozzi. He is looking to try and surprise all of these guys in this final sprint for the line. The man in the middle, though, is a man who is very good. There's the attack from Pozzi. He's going forward, but in fact they caught them just as they were looking round, so he didn't get too far off the front.
Well, there were originally 12 in this breakaway. There's now 5 of them left as they've cracked under the pressure on this circuit. Pozzi is brought back to heel again, as again they look at each other here, and this will cost them the race. Piccoli is there in 3rd place, and he's probably the best sprinter of this group.
Mirko Gualdi is the Mobile Veta rider at the back now. He's a very good sprinter as well. Pozzi tries again. He accelerates right down the far side of the road. But you know, there in the middle, Mariano Piccoli is nicely placed. In the back, Mirko Gualdi, watch for him because he has got a good punch.
Well, Piccoli on second wheel here. The big tall man in the Seiko colours is Giuseppe Calcaterra. They are going to win it out anyway, and Piccoli comes and challenges. Mariano Piccoli, a former king of the mountains, gets the victory on the line. Giuseppe Calcaterra there in 2nd place. But this is the race now for the rest of them, and indeed in the middle of the pack here is going to be the winner of the Giro d'Italia, and that was an excellent victory for Stefano Garzelli. There he goes, and Marco Pantani was not very far away from his side.